Hi folks, it's Mark Merrill with Firm, Fairness in Reporting Media. The battle continues. Maine people fighting back while statewide newspapers face a grim future. The fight for free speech under Title IX continues in the State House and the state of Maine and the Blaine House. You know what, folks? I'm getting kind of tired of this. Don't we understand one particular thing before we move on? Just one. Federal law, as long as this country has existed, always rules over state law. It's in the Constitution. I don't know why there's such a fight, especially such a little rural state like Maine. I guess it's because, well, unfortunately, for those of us living in this era of the 21st century, gosh, we're on the verge of 250 years of existence as a country, folks. And some of our lame, woke, radical governors want to fight the federal law. But you know what? I think it has to do with just President Trump. Joe Biden was president, or Kamala Harris was president, or Barack Obama was president. Oh, sure, Mr. President, absolutely. We understand that's the rule of law and we have to obey it. No, you have to obey the rule of law no matter who's president and who's in Congress. The law, federal, overrules the state all the time. Now, as for moving on, while statewide weekly newspapers, and another topic here, folks, and daily papers face reality of less home and business deliveries, that's another one we're going to hit on, and Attorney General Aaron Frey now is going to try, he's going to try his turn at bat, if you will, to outsmart Donald Trump and his federal cuts under Title IX violations, speaking of which. And we'll have some facts for you as well, ladies and gentlemen, from Canada on how much their government is charging U.S. citizens for goods and other items. Well, first, folks, here's a view on the censure of Laurel Libby and what we Maine citizens can do about it. And first of all, we're going to hear from a state representative herself. You see before you here a Katrina Smith. She's the Republicans or GOP Assistant Minority Leader, speaking out online just recently about this topic, with Laurel Libby being censured.
I just wanted to hop on here and tell you a little bit about the tragedy of yesterday. The tragedy of yesterday is that the Democrats got upset, censured our member, and took away an elected official's right to vote and speak for her people on a barely defined process. And it's really a show of power. It's a way to keep us quiet. It's a way to diminish our numbers. They are practicing lawfare against the Republicans in Maine because they are losing. They are losing these topics. Bipartisan, people do not want men and women's sports. I don't know why they can't see it, but it's time to stop. Republicans are here to speak for the people. Laurel spoke for the people. Our private lives and the lives that we lead outside of the chamber, while have to be ethical, of course, also they need to show that someone has broken a law or even a community standard like Facebook. So, we're in dangerous times. What am I going to post tomorrow that they don't like? Probably something. I think I post something every day they don't like. But enough is enough. The Democrats are abusing their power. It needs to stop. They need to back off and let the people that were duly elected represent their people. We will keep you updated. We'll be fighting this. We'll figure out how. We'll need your help. Stick together. The Democrats are the ones we're fighting against, not each other. No matter what a Republican has done, within that you might not agree with, just know that we are sticking together and we are fighting against the Democrats and what they're doing to Maine. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
And that's it from her and the view of the viewpoint, folks. But we also have another young man who's about to speak here before you. Was unidentified for his name, but he spoke at the rally on March 1st about 1,000 people. Yeah, that's right, 1,000 people, despite what you've heard in the media, against Governor Mills' censure, including Title IX.
Censure of.
So we'll hear from that young man here in just a moment. It's too bad. It's ridiculous, is what it is. We have to fight back, as Ms. Smith said just now. We'll see where it ends.
First off, I want to thank everybody for showing up today. It's a cold Saturday morning, and being at the State House isn't what we all want to do. But I think we can all agree that the future of this state matters more than a little bit of cold. That's what brings us all together this morning, and I'm pretty grateful for it. Most of y'all have probably seen my videos from the Augusta and Freeport school board meetings talking about Title IX. I've been blown away by the positive response I've gotten over the last few weeks, and I want to thank everyone who has reached out or shown support. It means a lot. But if I'm being honest, what would mean even more is seeing all of you guys at your local school board standing up for your children.
It couldn't have been said any better. As the young man certainly made a point. We will certainly research his name and present it to you. We can put it in the comments later on, folks. But thanks, number one, for joining us here on FIRM, Fairness in Reporting Media, as we're talking about Maine people fighting back with all this Title IX nonsense from the governor's point of view. And also, as we move on to our next story here in a few minutes, statewide newspapers look like they're facing a grim future. But if you have any questions for us, folks, or you want to contact us with some information that you have on a different topic or a topic of your own that you feel is being violated on First Amendment rights, or by First Amendment rights being withheld or censored, contact us at fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. As we move on from Katrina and on to Aaron Frey, that's a disturbing thought. But the Attorney General issued a statement shortly after Governor Mills' remarks way back there at the latter part of February when Mr. Trump was addressing the Republican governor's meeting in D.C. about his office's next steps to combat Mr. Trump's enforcement of Title IX. That's what we're trying to say here of the violations. Now, according to Mr. Frey here, folks, he outlined in a feisty legal strategy to fight the Trump administration over his threat to withhold federal funds from the state. And he said there was some question in regard to whether or not the law is being followed. Federal law is federal law. You don't alter it. You don't interpret it. Which is in a long stretch, folks, from the Supreme Court, but we're going to mention it anyway. It's interesting how some Supreme Court justices have stretched the truth of the laws of the Constitution and the Articles in past years. Fortunately for those of us who uphold the law and obey the First Amendment, Second Amendment, all the way through the first 10, which are the Bill of Rights, and everything else under the Constitution, and especially paragraph 2 of the Declaration of Independence, well, it's written from 247, I believe, years ago. If I'm a little off, that's too bad. There's no detour. There's no off-ramp. There's no interpretation of the law. Mr. Frey went on to say he was unaware of any new efforts to cut federal funding to Maine since the testy exchange between Mills and Trump over his vow, he says, without federal funds, if Maine continues to defy an executive order barring transgender athletes from competing in women's and girls' sports. Well, this is like the ping pong ball I was talking about earlier, folks. Just keeps going back and forth and back and forth and up and down. On March 1st, as we get into this month finally, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, initiated a compliance review of the University of Maine for alleged violations of Title IX. Why? Because they say the federal government is threatening to withhold future federal funding because of transgenders being hired under DEI under the Biden and Harris regime illegally. Any institution that chooses to disregard the president's executive order on Title IX, it can count on losing future funding, according to new USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins. But in a response, Ms. Mills criticized the Trump administration by saying, "Where does it end? In America, the president is neither a king nor a dictator, as much as this one tries to act like it," she says. And she finished her statement by saying it's the rule of law that prevents him from being so. She hasn't obeyed the rule of law at all. All she does is tippy-toe and kick the can down the road since Biden left office and Harris got blown out in the November election. She is a dictator. Why else would she be doing and talking this way? Maine is already part of a lawsuit, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, of 21 other states and the District of Columbia to halt Trump's prior attempts to freezing funding. The plaintiffs arguing the move was devastating and has impacts that is inconsistent with the Constitution language and gives Congress power over spending decisions. But a federal district court judge in Rhode Island approved a temporary block on the freeze and heard arguments a little over a week ago on extending the block. Mr. Frey said he believes that they're covered right now from an arbitrary presidential direction to just stop the flow of what Congress has said money is supposed to be spent on. Well, that's Congress. Biden was president back then. Gee, there's a new commander-in-chief now. But this was about a case in Rhode Island, folks. Frey, however, left the door open to future legal action if the Trump administration follows through on the president's words. If the president were to seek to withhold new funds or to try to pass an executive order that would do something different, we would evaluate whether or not we have an order in place today that protects us. No, you don't. No, you don't, Bucky. No, you friggin' don't. If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, then we would evaluate whether or not we should go to court in order to promote federal and state law. Republicans in the legislature are urging Mills' administration to take a different approach, especially regarding the exchange with the president. I wouldn't do it, folks. Nope, not at all. You're in big trouble. Title IX is Title IX. It's the law. Now we have some new additional information, folks. Of course, we were mentioning it just at the top of the program, that Maine newspapers, the dailies and weekly publications, may each have a limited existence facing them and have to go digital pretty soon. Along with recent changes in Maine, the Colorado Trust announced last month that it's closing 2 of its papers in the Denver suburbs. Some media watchers have raised questions about whether the National Trust nonprofit model will be successful, although the print media landscape has been bleak for some time. This is probably coming a little later than a lot of other news outlets. According to a Nick Usher, professor of communication at the University of San Diego, he thinks what is scary is that we're seeing now a nonprofit doesn't mean revenue neutral. No. What's one got to do with the other? Nothing. Newspapers still have to be self-sustaining. No kidding. Way to go, Sherlock. Figure that out on your own. Many researchers have linked the decline in local news gathering to the increase in political division across the country. Oh, jeez, they're going to have something to blame, isn't it? Always with the deflectocrats. Always to point the fingers. It's them. They did it. Them. Wasn't me. No, it was the one-armed man. Many researchers also, in addition calling it political division, also say with more and more people getting their news from partisan sources is another reason. But according to the Mental Local News Initiative at Northwestern University, more than 3,200 newspapers, folks, have closed since 2005. That's over 19 years ago, almost 20. Including 127 just in 2023 alone. By contrast, 81 new digital news sites launched, including more than 24 former newspapers that became digital-only publications. Another main newspaper, the Bangor Daily News, here's another rag, recently consolidated its 4 weekly newspapers in Aroostook County into one publication. Aroostook, the biggest of the 16 counties in Maine. On a final note here, folks, in this particular topic on the newspapers, a union president said that when the National Trust bought the Maine newspapers in 2023, there was a great deal of optimism with the newsroom. Quote, this person said, what we're seeing now is that a reminder that nonprofit ownership is not going to fix all of our problems in this industry, as previously mentioned, and that we really need visionary leadership and creative thinking as much as we need philanthropy to make our business model work. You didn't quite go into climate change or diversity or inclusion, did she? Almost! Our final topic today, folks, is about Canada. They're not playing very nice with us recently, as you probably noticed there with Trudeau lipping off about the fact that what President Trump is trying to do with tariffs is just dumb. That's his response to President Trump's initiating tariffs as dumb? How's that possible? He's doing his job, or we can say for you, Trudeau. So here's Canada's list of tariffs against the United States citizens on an unbelievable list of products that affect all Americans. Dairy products. First of all, milk, 270%. That's the tariff. Cheese, 245%. Butter, 298%. Poultry, 238%. Skipping down to eggs, 163%, barley 160%, wheat 94%, sugar 265%. On imports, peanut butter 295%, rice 150%, vegetables 100%, fish products 100%, lumber 20%, shoes 30%, cocoa 30%, metals 25%, wool 30%, and tobacco, all you lucky smokers, 100%. Don't like it? See, it matches right up with the one you're looking at there, folks. Blame Canada. Yeah, don't blame Canada, all right. We thank you for your time on this one, folks, as we do all of our programs here on FIRM, Fairness in Reporting Media. I am Mark Merrill. Anytime, please check out our podcasts on rumble.com/fairnessmedia1 and email us at fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. As always, stay safe, everyone. Peace to all.